Hello everyone, welcome to another video. This video is to accompany the Trellis Blanket pattern and I've linked that for you in the description box below. This time I'm going to show you how to make the Trellis Squares, and then in part 2 I'm going to show you how to join your squares together and to make this lovely border. Let's get started. For round 1, I'm starting with the mustard yarn and a 4mm hook, and I'm making a slip knot. Pop that onto my hook and I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And slip stitch to join to make a loop, and I do this by putting my hook under both loops of the first chain. This helps to make the center loop sit nice and flat. Yarn over and pull through. So there's my little loop, and now I'm going to chain 2. And this 2 chain is going to form part of the first cluster stitch. So I'm going to work over the tail and make another treble crochet. And if you're working in US terms, that's a double crochet into that ring. And this counts as our first cluster stitch. Going to chain 2. So now I'm going to make 5 treble crochet cluster stitches followed by 2 chains into my center ring. And if you're using US terms, that's 5 double crochet cluster stitches followed by 2 chains into the ring. So to make the cluster stitch, I'm going to yarn over, insert the hook into the ring and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and that's the first treble or double crochet of the cluster stitch. And then to complete, I'm going to yarn over again into the loop, pull up my yarn, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And then I'm going to complete the stitch with a yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. And that is the cluster stitch. So now I'm going to chain 2. And I'll show you that again. So yarn over, insert the hook into the loop, pull up the yarn, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over, insert the hook again, pull up the yarn, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Chain 2. And again. So this is my 5th cluster stitch. Chain 2. And I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the starting 2 chain to join. The yarn off, and pull through. So I have my 2 chains and a treble crochet or a US double crochet making the first cluster stitch, and then I have 5 more cluster stitches around the ring, so that's 6 in total, and that is my round 1 completed. For round 2, I've got the spice yarn and I'm just going to join in any one of the 2 chain spaces by pulling up a loop and chaining 1. And I'm going to make puff stitches now, and I'm going to make a puff stitch, 2 chains and a puff stitch in each space around the centre. So to make a puff stitch, I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and I'm just pulling the hook up so I have some height, and it's this height that's going to give us the lovely puff stitches. So that's 1, and I'm going to do that 3 more times. So yarn over, pull up a loop, that's 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of the loops on the hook to complete the puff stitch. And then chain 2, and again, so yarn over, pull up a loop, and again I'm pulling it up to the height of the previous stitch, and 3 more times, yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. So I've got 2 puff stitches and 2 chains between them in the first space. Now chain 2, and I'm going to move on to the next space. So 2 more puff stitches with 2 chains between. So yarn over, pull up a loop 4 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over and pull through all loops on the hook, 2 chains and another puff stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through all loops, followed by 2 chains, and I'm going to repeat that in the remaining spaces. This is my last puff stitch. Whoops, try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to finish the round, 2 chains. And I'm going to slip stitch into this stitch that closed the top of the first puff stitch. Fasten off. And there is my round 2 complete. For round 3, I've got the copper yarn, and I'm going to join in one of the 2 chain spaces between puff stitches and make 2 chains. And this round is made of 4 treble cluster stitches, but I've started with a 2 chain to get some height. So my first cluster stitch is going to be a 3 treble cluster stitch. So to make the stitch, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the space and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then again yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. That's the second treble of my 3 treble cluster stitch, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook, and that makes my first cluster stitch. Now I'm going to 3 chain, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to make my next cluster stitch in the next space between puff stitches, and this time I'm going to make a 4 treble cluster stitch. So it's the same as the last time, except this time we do it 4 times. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. So there is my 4 treble cluster stitch, and then chain 3, and I'm going to do this 10 more times around between the puff stitches. So here's my last cluster stitch. 2, 3, 4, 3 chains, and to finish I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the first cluster stitch. And fasten off. Round 4 is the leaves, and this is the point where your circle becomes a square. Let's just take a look at these leaves before we move on and I show you how to do them. These are cluster stitches as well, but the way they're worked makes them look slightly different. They stand out from the square, so you can see that they look like they're slightly detached. And this just makes them look a bit more interesting and gives them a leaf-like effect. So they're standing up, they don't lay flat like these stitches. So if you're working your square and you think, oh, my stitches aren't laying flat, they're not supposed to. They're supposed to stand out like little leaves. So let's bring my centre back in. I've got the mistletoe yarn. This is the darker green yarn. I'm just going to pull up a loop and make a chain and a double crochet in the first space to join the yarn. Going to chain 2, and a double crochet in the next chain 3 space, and now chain 2, and now I'm going to work the leaf cluster all in one space. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then again, so that's twice, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops, that's 1, yarn over and again, that's 2, and yarn over again, that's 3, and that makes the first leaf, and you can see that it's standing away from the chains behind it. So I'll show you that again. And once you get into the rhythm of this, it's really easy because you're just counting 1, 2, 3 each time. So I'll show you that again. So yarn over, pull through 2 loops once, yarn over, pull through 2 loops twice, yarn over, pull through 2 loops 3 times. and then I'm going to chain 3. So for the second leaf in the same space, we're going to yarn over twice. And this time, instead of counting 1, 2, 3 with our pull throughs, we're going to count 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to pull up a loop and I'm going to yarn over and pull through twice. So that's 2. And then yarn over twice, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2, 3 times. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to yarn over twice, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops 4 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my middle leaf. And again, you can see the stitches along the top. It's standing away from the chains at the back. And then chain 3. And we're going to work the small leaf again in the same space. So this is yarn over once at the start and then count 1, 2, 3. So yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops once, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops twice, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull through 2 loops 3 times. So that's my 1, 2, 3. So there's my leaf cluster. And now I'm going to chain 2. So we only have 3 chains between the leaves. Everywhere else it's 2 chains. And then double crochet, 2 chains, double crochet, and then 2 chains, and I'm going to work my next leaf cluster, and I'm going to repeat this around the center. And then to finish the round, 2 chains, and I'm going to slip stitch into my first double crochet to finish the round, and fasten off. And before I move on, I'm just going to sew in these tails so they don't get in the way for the next round. Tails are all sewn in, and now we're going to start the granny rounds. And from now on, the square is just like a regular granny square, except it's got some colour changes going on. And I will show you how to work those colour changes and how to hide your yarn so you can't see loops of carried yarn on the back. I'm going to start round 5 by joining cream between any 2 double crochet stitches on the side of the square, and I'm going to chain 2, and this counts as the first treble crochet of the granny cluster, and a granny cluster is 3 treble crochets or US double crochets worked together. There we go. And then I'm going to make 3 treble crochet in the next space. And in the next space. And now I've reached my corner, so I've reached my large leaf, and I'm going to chain 2, and then make 3 treble crochet in the next space. And then I'm just going to continue round, making 3 treble crochet, US double crochet in each space and 2 chains at the corners where the large leaf is. So here we are back where I started. So 3 treble crochet. And I'm going to finish this round by slip stitching into the top of the first treble crochet. So I'm going to ignore this starting 2 chain and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the first proper treble crochet stitch. And the reason I do this is because it gives an almost invisible join. So there's round 5 complete. And round 6 is where it becomes a regular granny square that you will recognise if you've made granny squares before. So I'm going to start with a 2 chain. And this counts as my first treble of my next cluster. And then I'm going to turn and I'm going to make 2 more treble crochet, US double crochet in the same space. So there's my first cluster. And then in the next space, another cluster. And I'm at the corner now, and this time we're going to make a regular granny square corner. So that's 3 trebles, 2 chains, and 3 trebles in the same space. Two chains, and 3 trebles. So now we have lovely square corners, and I'm going to continue working round 3 trebles in each space along the sides, and at the corners 3 trebles, 2 chains and 3 trebles. So last cluster. And slip stitch into that first treble crochet again. There we go. So now we have nice square granny corners, and from now on I'll just flip it over. There we go, that looks better. And from now on the whole square is worked just like a granny square, so it will always be 3 trebles in each space and 3 trebles, 2 chains, 3 trebles at each corner. And the pattern looks a bit wordy, but all it's really doing is telling you where the colour changes are. The stitches are the same, it's just a granny square. So if I just show you the finished block, I just bring this in, so you can see that it's just a granny square, and the pattern is really just telling you where to make these colour changes. The stitches will always be the same, it's just a granny square. So if you find the pattern a bit confusing, I've included a large image of this block so you can see where the colour changes are, and you can count the number of clusters in between the colour changes. Round 7 ended with the wrong side facing me, so I'm going to chain 2 and turn, so the right side's facing me now, and I'm going to make 2 more treble crochet in that first space, my first cluster, and we've got a colour change coming up. I'm going to work this corner in the mushy peas, that's the light green. Isn't that a fantastic name for a yarn, mushy peas? So the colour change happens in the stitch before you want to use the colour. So the colour change is going to happen here. so that we're ready to use the yarn when we get to the corner here. So I'm going to make my first 2 trebles. 1, 2. And then I'm going to start my 3rd treble crochet of the cluster. So yarn over, pull up a loop and pull through 2 loops. So I've got 2 loops left on my hook. But rather than finishing the stitch using the cream yarn, I'm going to bring in the mushy peas, if I can find the end. Here we go. Oh. I'm going to bring in the mushy peas, and I've just folded over about 10 centimetres of yarn to form a loop. And I'm going to put the loop on the hook and pull it through to complete the stitch with the mushy peas yarn. So the whole of the stitch is cream, but I'm ready to use the mushy peas yarn for my corner. So I'm going to just separate out the tail, and I'm going to use the mushy peas yarn for the corner, but I'm going to carry the cream yarn underneath it. So the cream yarn is resting across the top of my stitches, and I'm going to make my corner over it. So 3 trebles, 2 chains and 3 trebles, 2, 3, 2 chains and 3 trebles, and my next stitches are cream, so I need to change back to the cream yarn in the last treble stitch of these 3 trebles. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So I'm going to drop the green yarn behind, pick up the cream yarn and finish that stitch by pulling through the cream yarn. So now I'm ready to work my next 3 stitches in the cream yarn, and all of the colour changes throughout the square from now on are worked in this way. So you're always going to change colours in the last pull through of the stitch before you want to use the colour. So now I'm going to work cream treble crochet stitches along the side, but I'm going to carry the green yarn along the side, so I'm ready to change back to it when I get to this corner. So I'm just going to let the yarn rest loosely across the stitches. And don't worry that you can see it, because we're going to sort that out in the next round. So cream stitches now. And my green yarn is just resting along the top of the stitches. And you want to make sure that you don't pull this yarn too tight so it distorts your square. It doesn't matter if there's a bit of a loop and it's loose, it's fine, because we're going to pick this yarn up in the next round so it's hidden. So just allowing that green to rest along the stitches, you don't need to yank it tight. So I'm coming up to the corner. It's time for a colour change. So this is my 3rd stitch. So I'm going to stop when I've got 2 loops left on my hook. I'm going to bring the cream yarn to the front this time. So I'm always keeping the cream yarn in the front and the green yarn at the back. And this will stop your yarns from twisting together, which is really annoying. So yarn over and finish the stitch with the green yarn. So now I'm ready to use the green yarn for my corner. And I'm going to let the cream yarn rest along the top of my stitches 1, 2, this is my third stitch, so now it's time to change back to cream. So green yarn to the back, pick up the cream yarn and finish the stitch. And now I'm ready to carry on in cream, and I'm going to carry my green yarn along to the next corner. And I'm just going to work all the way round till I get back to the beginning. And after you've completed this corner, you can cut the green yarn, leave a tail to sew in, because you don't need to carry that along for these last few stitches. So to finish the round, slip stitch into the first treble. So here we go. I've got nice neat corners with my colour changes, and this is the front. And on the back, it looks like this. You can see loops of the carried yarn, and we're going to sort that out in round 8 so they're hidden. So for round 8, we're going to start in the same way. So chain 2 and turn. And this is just a regular granny round, no colour changes in this round. I'm going to work 3 trebles in each space. And a corner in the usual way. And now we've reached the part where there are carried yarns. So we've got yarn carried along the top of the stitches. And what we want to do is hide that as much as possible, so then the back is as neat as the front. And to do that, all you need to do is insert your hook under the loop of yarn when you make your clusters. So I'm just going to put my hook under the loop of carried yarn and make my first treble crochet. And what it does is it pulls that yarn up into the stitch. So it really does do a good job of hiding that carried yarn. I'm going to finish that cluster and just turn that over so you can see it. So we have the corner in green, and now the next cluster, and that piece of carried yarn, so you can see it here, that loop of carried yarn is concealed within the stitch. So I'll do another one. So we've got the green yarn showing here, so I'm going to put my hook under the green yarn and work my stitches. So now that green yarn is no longer sitting along the top of the stitches, it's pulled up into the cluster above, and you will see little flecks of green hiding in the sides of the stitches. You can't conceal it completely, but it really doesn't spoil the effect of the finished blanket. I quite like it. It's part of the honesty of crochet, I think. So we'll do one more. So for the rest of this round, I'm just going to work a granny round in the normal way, but wherever there's carried yarn, you're just going to pick it up under your hook. And rounds 9, 10, 11 and 12 are worked in the same way, so they have colour changes on the round with the right side facing you. And the rounds with the wrong side facing you are just worked in one colour, and you're picking up the yarn in the round below. So the back looks as neat as the front. Round 13, that's the last round, is worked slightly differently. So I'm going to carry on working my rounds, making my colour changes where I need to, and then I will show you how to work round 13. Round 13 is slightly different because it has two colours in the corners. So we're going to use mistletoe and cream in the corners, and then mistletoe on the sides. And it's the last round, so it doesn't have a wrong side round after where you can pick up the carried yarn. So this time we're not going to carry the yarn all the way along, otherwise you would have loops of green and cream along this edge. We're going to just work the colour changes in the corners and cut the yarn. So what you end up with is just these two loops of carried duck egg. It does give you a few more ends to sew in, but it's just a much tidier way of making the corners. So I'm at the end of round 12, and the first stitch of round 13 is in mistletoe. That's the dark green. So I need to change to mistletoe in the last pull through of this stitch. So I'm in the right place to start the next round. So in my last pull through, I'm going to change to the mistletoe and slip stitch in the usual way to finish the round. And I'm going to 2 chain in the mistletoe and turn. So now I'm in the right place to make my mistletoe cluster right in the centre of this edge. I will show you. It's this one. So it's right in the middle. But I'm going to need to change back to the duck egg for the next cluster. So I'm going to lift the duck egg up from the row below, and I'm going to work my 2 mistletoe stitches over it. So it's in the right place when I need it. So that's 1. And that's my second one, and I'm going to change back to the duck egg in the last pull through of that stitch. I'm going to drop the mistletoe behind and finish the stitch, so I'm ready to continue with the duck egg. But as I said, I'm not going to carry this yarn along this time. I'm going to cut and leave a tail to sew in and continue with the duck egg. So I'm nearly at the corner now, and the corners have a mistletoe cluster, a cream corner, and then a mistletoe cluster before changing back to duck egg. So in my last duck egg stitch, I'm going to change to mistletoe, and I'm going to carry the duck egg yarn and work over it. So 1, 2, and this is my 3rd stitch, but now I need to use cream. So change to cream, and I'm going to carry my mistletoe and duck egg and work over them. So just working my corner in cream. That's 2. So this is my 3rd stitch, but my next stitch is going to be mistletoe. So I'm going to drop the cream and finish the stitch with the mistletoe. So this time I am just working over duck egg, and then I work my mistletoe stitches. And I need to change back to the duck egg. So I'm going to drop the mistletoe, change back to the duck egg, and then work my duck egg stitches. And I'm picking up the carriage yarn in the row below in the usual way. So here we go, here is my corner. So I've got my mistletoe, my cream and my mistletoe. And because I'm not carrying these yarns, I can cut the mistletoe and the cream, and we will sew these in afterwards. So we have a nice, neat and tidy reverse side to the square. I'm going to carry on working along the side and I'm picking up that yarn in the round below as I go. And I have to work a mistletoe cluster right in the center between these two mushy peas clusters. So I'm going to change to mistletoe, and I'm going to work my mistletoe cluster, and then I'm going to cut the mistletoe. Change back to duck egg. And cut the mistletoe. I'm just going to repeat this all the way around. So this is what the back will look like on the last round. You've got the mistletoe clusters with their two tails that you need to sew in, and then in the corners you will have a mistletoe and cream tail to sew in for each corner, and you will just have these little duck egg carried bits of yarn, but the rest of the back, the carriage yarn is all hidden, nice and neat and tidy. So sew in these tails, and then it's time to join. I've sewn in all my tails, so join me in the next video where I'll show you how to join the squares together and add the lovely border. See you next time.